Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. You know, as it goes, we are in a standard state of flux. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but we are in a standard state of flux. There's so much going on. And there's a topic that came up with Kamala Harris with Don Lemon that I want to discuss. And who best to discuss that but with Tamara Shealey, who's been here. She's a regular every other Wednesday, so she's here again. We're going to be discussing those issues. But I kind of got into an interesting scenario on my Facebook page. I had a video. I'm very concerned about the treatment that Ilhan Omar is getting over the tweet that many are calling anti-Semitic. You guys know me. First of all, I call myself the person who knows that race is but a social construct. But by the same time, we live in today's reality. And what I always want to do is make sure that in messaging, we don't make things worse. In messaging, what we do is try to get everybody together, etc. So before I made that video, I contacted a whole lot of my Jewish friends to find out where they stood. And most of them agreed with what I was saying. But another good friend of mine wrote a long prose on my Facebook page this morning. And I figured, you know what? I want to give this man a hearing because when we're talking about progressive values, when we're talking about all these issues, you want to get them all covered correctly. Whether you agree or disagree, that's not necessarily the important thing. Everybody has to have their message aired and let the audience, let everybody else decide where we go. So the title of the program today is Tamara Shealey on Kamala Harris and more. And then in the second segment, we have Roy Cohen on the Ilhan Omar shutdown or shakedown. Subtitle, Tamara Shealey, our bi-weekly guest, will discuss Kamala Harris and more. Roy Cohen was none too happy on my take on the Democratic response to Ilhan Omar. Tamara Shealey will appear on the first segment. Roy will be on the second segment. And then from there, after we're done with those two, you know I told you guys I'm going to be touching on Medicare for All, but something else I'm going to be touching on, MMT, Modern Monetary Theory. It is a very important topic. You're going to be hearing a whole lot about it, and we are going to cover that. Today, not in detail, just to kind of give you a flavor of it. But without further ado, we come to Mademoiselle Tamara Shealey. Welcome aboard. I know you're here today, Tamara, but I know you're tired. I know you've been doing a whole lot. So before we get into this picture, I want our audience to know all the stuff that you've been doing and what you've been up to in the last few days, how difficult the last few days were for you.
Oh, Egberto. So I have been traveling. I am the senior advocate of politics, beauty, and barber, where we address policy that affects the beauty and barber industry. So this what's today, Wednesday? Yeah. Monday, we had our 6th annual industry day at the Capitol. We were in Nashville, Tennessee at the Tennessee State Capitol, advocating on behalf of our industry and engaging beauty and barber professionals in the political process. So I am a bit tired, but you know what? This Kamala Harris, is she black, is she African-American conversation is right up my alley.
Well, look, tell me about it. I sent you a video with Don Lemon and, Don Lemon speaking about Kamala, and I don't want to say disputing her validity or anything like that, but how would you put it?
She's black.
Okay.
America sees her as a black woman, and that literally is all there is to it. I mean, I don't think it requires a whole lot of conversation. Don Lemon and April Ryan went toe to toe about black African American, and I've definitely understood both of their perspectives. Don Lemon made it clear, is she African American? Is she black? And what I thought he was trying to say was, does she really understand the black experience? Is she really does she really understand what it means to be, black in America? And he addressed the Jim Crow and understanding that system. Did she really understand that? And April Ryan made it real clear that she's black.
Right.
Black.
Well, it's amazing because in that thread, I wanted to, my good friend, Candace Weber, it was on her thread, and it turned out that she was sort of, she was like, I think that the part that she said was, look, we don't need to be talking about, we don't need Don Lemon to try to define a person's race or anything like that, especially Don Lemon, who sometimes run into problems knowing who exactly he is. But
is he black, right? Don, are you black? How black are you? Are you black enough?
But the issues, I gave the example, Tamara, when I came to the United States. The first thing that I did, I went to the University of Texas, and there was this group. I was in a sea of white, and to be honest with you, I was not uncomfortable. But when I saw that there was an Afro-American culture committee, I said, wow, I want to go join that thing, and I went ahead immediately. That was the first organization on campus I joined, and the second one was Engineering Association, but the first one was that thing. And I remember sitting down there listening to Martin Luther King, and you know me, I was sort of a Malcolm X kind of a guy because I didn't quite believe in turning the other cheek, and they ridiculed me. And the way they ridiculed me, the black folk, they ridiculed me, and they, in effect, I know what April was saying. It's like they were trying to take away your blackness because you were not American, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
but America deals you a black card, period. If your skin is as brown as mine, as brown as hers, you get a black card, period. You don't get a pass, you get a black card.
And that's the reason why I mentioned to Candace to one of the ladies that responded, if I went to Vidor, Texas, they're not going to say, what kind of black are you? They're going to just lynch. Well, in the olden days, you're in this. I'm exaggerating now, but you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So I found it a bit. I found Don Lemon type of questioning unfruitful. I didn't think it was worthwhile, and I thought it got off of the subject that we really need to be talking about. I preach about race as a social construct, but given that we live in America, given that we live where this social construct still has meaning, I wanted to get involved there and start saying, look, yeah, we have some issues, but Don Lemon bringing up a black issue in that form is, what was wrong. I don't remember him ever doing it, Tamara, with Barack Obama. I could be wrong, but I don't remember him doing it. And here's the interesting thing that I mentioned about Barack Obama in the piece. Barack Obama's father was Kenyan. Mm-hmm. He didn't have the having been a slave family tree experience. Mm-hmm. Kamala Harris has Jamaican lineage, which does have the slavery thing, not American slavery, but the slavery thing involved. Mm-hmm. I am from Central America. The same lineage. No American, no black person on this hemisphere came here on a pleasure ship.
No, and you're right. Don Lemon, I think that where he was attempting to go, I didn't think the platform was appropriate. Because we have this thing of colorism in the black community where
exactly.
Kamala is a light-skinned black woman, and because of her lighter complexion, she may not have. She was, and I'm just going to put it out there. She was a house slave, where us brown.
Oh, you use the right word.
Yeah, I'm being nice. I know whose broadcast I'm on.
Okay.
She was in the house, and those of us with a darker hue, we were definitely in the field. So she, her privilege, she may have experienced some privilege because of the the complexion of her skin. So I know that's where he was trying to go. I thought the platform being on CNN, if we're going to have this conversation, we had this conversation in a different forum, and I didn't think that was appropriate.
Yeah, I don't. I really didn't understand what he was trying to do. Sometimes Lemon, he confuses me sometimes because sometimes he's on point, and sometimes you want to know where the hell he's coming from.
Well, I did understand, Don. I really did, because the conversation he wanted to have, April Ryan did not allow him to go there because she stayed in her lane in messaging. She was not going to have the conversation of colorism where he could have taken it in that particular platform. So I knew where he wanted to go with that. And because she's lighter, she may not have been, she's not as, like I say, her lighter skin has given her some privilege that the darker skinned Black people, we don't have that privilege. And
okay, now
wanted to go.
Now you told me that, and I didn't see this, so I'm leaving this part up to you. You saw her on the Breakfast Club, both her and Cory Booker on the Breakfast Club, which for my white audience, the Breakfast Club is a summarily Black kind of a talk show. I think this one was in New York, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me, you said something about, it seems like they went on that show and bombed. What is that? What does that mean exactly?
Well, that's a very urban broadcast. If you gotta come with it. It's a whole nother level of Blackness that we understand. It's something that if you come on this show, you better bring it, and you better bring your Black card, and you better wear that thing proud. So she and Cory Booker went on this broadcast, and Hillary Clinton actually went on the broadcast, and I remember when she went on and they asked her a question about
the Tabasco pepper.
Hot Sauce is a song, Hot Sauce in Her Purse. It's a Beyonce song, and carrying hot sauce in her bag. Uh-huh. And one of the hosts asked Hillary, "Are you pandering to Black people?" Because she said she had hot sauce in her bag. Uh-huh. And Hillary had, I was taken aback. Hillary made the statement that, "Is it working?" When the host asked her if she had hot sauce in her bag, and she said, "Are you pandering to Black people?" And she said, "Well, is it working?" And it was just awful. Hillary just bombed there. It was no place for Hillary Clinton to even try to make an impact. It was not a good look. But nevertheless, bringing it back to Kamala and Cory went on, and literally when they asked him about a Black agenda, Cory danced around the edges, and Cory just was out there on the edges. He never bought it in. So that was, they tore him up on social media after that attempt. Kamala came on and she talked about the issues, but she still didn't have enough of a Black agenda to satisfy that audience. So neither of them fared well on the Breakfast Club. And I think, as a Black candidate, if you decide to go on those kind of urban broadcasts, they better know you down and you down with it. It's a whole different kind of conversation.
Well, I'm going to take a contrarian view in as much as I didn't see it, Tamara, and say this. Believe it or not, I think those two candidates are very smart. And in the case of Cory Booker is also very urban when he wants to be very urban, because you know what city he was the mayor of. My gut feeling is they don't mind bombing on very, very Black radio, because to their white audience, it gives them a certain degree of, they are not like the others. You follow what I'm saying?
And that would be their demise.
Right.
That would be their demise.
But you understand what I'm saying there, right? Mm-hmm. In other words, I am trying to carry. Whenever we have the race conversation, I am trying to carry that race conversation to a place, to a place where we can actually have these distinct, different voices in different places without being concerned. In other words, the person that's coming after you is Roy Cohen, a good friend of mine. I love his son, who is a very activist out here that I work with. And we're going to have a similar discussion on this time, as opposed to the Black experience, the Jewish experience. And I expect him to school me, because I made a video last night that he wasn't happy with. Many other people were. So I want to have that dialogue. But with regards to this Kamala and Cory Booker, I think it is so important what you had to say as far as how the performance that they had. You brought in the light skin, dark skin thing on a show that isn't a black show. It's hosted by a black dude, but it's not a black show. And
you're not African American at birth, so you're black in America.
Right.
And there's a different experience, and I think, forgive me, I got something caught in my throat. I could feel it.
Yeah.
There's a different experience that is those of us who are born and raised in this country. There's a different experience, and we know it, and we know when people don't know it. So when Kamala went on and she didn't dive in, they know it.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, as far as I'm going to get a little personal now, but as far as me being, I never liked the word African American. I've always liked the word black. I always thought that, and you can tell me better. You can school me here because you were born Black American. I am a born Panamanian Panamanian. Okay, so you can probably school me here. But I always felt that when I came here and we had the different names, Americans, it used to be Negroes, it used to be colored, all these different things. It always seems to me that folks were trying to soften the word black. And you see, I am, in Spanish, I say, yo soy sumamente negro, meaning I'm absolutely black, right? And I'm just talking pigmentation here. And my thing was, do people, is it that the reason we got into all of this, that we were trying to change those words? And I have a caller, I'm going to bring you in right now. And then, you know what? Answer that for me, please. And then I want to bring a caller in. I
associate, I'm black. You know, I'm African American. That's more like my ethnicity. I'm of African descent. I'm American, but I am black. I have lived the black experience. It's a political statement. It says that, you know, growing up in the South, now mind you, I'm here in Georgia. You know, the word is used, it was derogatory, and they would call us the blacks with the on the end, like the blacks as in negatively. But it became like the Black Panthers, and the political statement that came would be black pride, pride of black. That resonates with those of us that identify as black. I am black.
Okay, well, good. You know, in Panama, I never had the issue as far as color is concerned, and I think it had to do with how we were raised. We were just raised to be some proud SOBs, right? And you just go out there, and in fact, that's why when I went to the University of Texas, I was in a sea of white, and I never once felt any kind of concern or pullback or whatever. I was always in there, both in the white groups, the black groups, or whatever, and that's how I reared my kid as well. But let me go ahead and bring a caller in. I don't know who the caller is yet, but let's see. Caller, come on in. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
Two of my favorite people in the world, live and on the radio and on Facebook. I just don't know how to act.
This sounds like Senor Bobby Rodrigo.
Hi, Bobby.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Tamara, I'm very upset. Tamara, I'm very upset with you. I love you, and I've never been on your show. I just don't understand what's going on with that. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Hey, I'm reaching out today. You listen out for me.
Bobby, you have been on my show several times.
Yes, and I have to chime in because you're talking about two of my most recent favorite subjects, Kamala Harris and the Israeli situation, the anti-Semitism. So I just want to make a couple of quick comments.
Before you do that, Bobby,
if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all, Bobby, but I'm going to ask you to do something because this is going to be great. I want you to listen in to Brother Cohen, who's going to be talking about the issue because, you know, he's going to, actually, I expect to be schooled. Like I said, everywhere that anytime I'm meeting something new, I want to learn something. So there's something he's telling me that I didn't get that I want to get. But so I want you to hold off on that portion and tell Tamara the other portion.
Okay. So as far as Kamala Harris is concerned, now, I know that both of you know, and many of the people know me from the, obviously, Blog Talk Radio and Egberto's show, and I am been involved in anti-prohibition for a long time. I've been involved in police corruption for a long time. And I don't identify with any particular party. I never have, etc. Here's the thing with Kamala Harris. History matters in these things. We're not talking about, somebody who might have blackface in their yearbook or somebody who may have done a sexual impromptu thing, which are important, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about somebody who has a history, a serious history of a disregard for low-income and minority communities in the state of California. She was a holy terror. You never see any history of her defending minorities and low-income, or anybody. I don't care about who it is, but particularly low-income and minority people from the progressive side from police brutality. And police brutality in California, there was just another killing yesterday outside of Oakland. A young man was asleep in his car with a legal firearm on his lap, asleep in his car, and the police shot him just because they woke him up. And they instead of doing it, six police officers opened fire on him within 4 seconds of what happened. Kamala Harris had never had any history, either as a prosecutor or as an attorney general, of stepping out and taking and crossing the thin blue line or any other line in the sense of helping people. They talk about, well, she was progressive because, cannabis was legalized under her watch. Well, I'm sorry, people, but her watch was really long, and cannabis was not legalized by legislation. Cannabis was legalized by the vote.
Now,
unlike some states that can't.
Bobby.
Cannabis was legalized by the vote.
Bobby,
yeah.
I've been hearing a whole lot of that. I don't want to, let me tell you how I'm not going to judge Kamala Harris, and I'd like to hear Tamara's input on this as well. I think she has some negatives, absolutely, as a prosecutor. Now, every one of those other candidates that are running that were prosecutors, I can bet we're going to be able to find something similar, except for the guy in Cleveland Baltimore, who just got elected, who is going to be a great prosecutor, not a prosecutor, but the legal guy in the state. So I come out and defend Kamala sometimes, and here's where I defend her. When she is given a different type of judgment because she is a woman, as opposed to a man. In other words, men, a lot of these prosecutors that were men, they're forgiven for the things that they do, or they're ignored, or they're not given that much substance. And then we get a Kamala.
Totally agree.
And then Kamala comes along, and everybody wants to pick up absolutely everything bad that she does. I am not on my program or on anything that I write I am going to call her out where it needs to be called out. But I'm not going to treat her any differently than I treat any other guy that we've given a pass to. And for you, Tamara, what do you say?
Right, but
let Tamara respond. I want Tamara to respond.
Oh,
well, I'm not looking at her. I'm looking at her record as an African American woman, and I know some women who are prosecutors who go into court and really try to. And to Bobby's point, I think try to help the community, help people. Her record is going to matter to Black and brown people. She's going to pay for that, and it has nothing to do with her being a woman. It's what she did as a Black woman. She's going to have to. She will be judged accordingly by the Black community.
Okay, and then Bobby, you said you had something to say about Curry, and I need to we're going to be closing down this segment pretty soon, so my brother Bobby can be very long-winded sometime. I love him to death, but Bobby. Come on in, Bobby.
Well, first of all, just the last comment on Harris, who you're talking to. For me, it's about the oath. I don't care if it's black, white, woman, man.
I know
it doesn't
that.
make any difference to me. It's about the oath of office.
Brother, I know that.
Now,
you don't have to confirm.
As far as the anti-Semitism thing, it is one of the pet peeves I have in society. I don't even like the fact that she apologized. Just because I criticize the Israeli government all the time. As far as I'm concerned, it's an apartheid regime with the way they treat the Palestinians. It has nothing to do with how I may or may not feel about any ethnicity, let alone the Israeli. I criticize the American government all the time. That doesn't make me hate Americans. It doesn't make me anti-American. It is ludicrous that conversation happens on that level. I'm not saying that anti-Semitism doesn't exist. Absolutely. I totally support BDS when it comes to the government of Israel. I totally think Netanyahu is a thug. You know, I think a lot of people are thugs in the world, not just that Netanyahu. And it doesn't mean I give a pass to Assad or any other dictator or anybody else who stamps on the rights of people. The Israeli government stamps on the rights of human beings in Israel. I don't care what anybody says. And if people want to say that's anti-Semitism, I look at them and I says, you obviously have no concept of what I'm saying or what anybody else is saying. The woman did not say anything like that.
I understand that, and that is my feeling is that I couldn't understand the anti-Semitism in the motion. I have Roy Cohen, who's going to be on right after Tamara, and I want to hear the point of view, because here's the one thing I've learned in doing this a whole long time. There are times that I've had to just change, or not even that, moderate some of the stuff that I say, not because I think what I said was wrong, but because how other people are going to hear it. And if we are in the activism business, we also have to be cognizant of how people hear us. Don't you agree, Tamara? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Egberto. I think your conversation today will be one that we continue to have. She's in it, and she's gonna continue to be take some scrutiny from the Black community. So let's continue to talk about it and
thank you
to light.
Look, thank you very much, Tamara. I know you're busy. You have to run and go do your thing. So thank you so kindly for doing your every other Wednesday as you do. And beforehand, get some sleep, my friend. Okay?
Yes, I am. I'm exhausted.
Okay. Well, thank you so kindly. You have a wonderful day now. Hold on, my friend. Bobby, look, now we're going to bring on Roy Cohen, a very good friend of mine. And Roy is going to be talking up. First, Roy is going to tell me, Egberto, you saw that prose that I wrote. Now this is what I mean. So without further ado, my brother Roy Cohen. Come on in, Roy.
Good afternoon, Egberto.
Hey, Roy, can you sit up a little bit? Because
sure,
there you go.
How's that?
There is
how's
good.
That?
Great.
Okay.
How you doing, Roy?
I am doing great, Egberto. I've been following the first part of the show eagerly with bated breath. It was very, very interesting.
Great. Now, let me tell folks what I said, and then I'd like you to then come in and say what I said was, I was very disappointed that for all that Ilhan Omar said made a sentence, and I won't repeat it here, but it was 5-6 words, and then her last reply was AIPAC, meaning AIPAC was doing what she said they were doing, and the Republican attack engine came out and blew her up. And then Nancy Pelosi and the other Democratic leadership condemned her. Subsequently, she wrote a letter of apology. But interestingly, below the letter, after the letter of apology, she then groups AIPAC, NRA, and all the other lobbying organizations of having too much influence with their money into politics. My question to you, my friend, is what did I get wrong?
Good question. First of all, it wasn't just the Republican attack machine and Donald Trump who went after her. It was every Jewish member of Congress on the Democratic side and some members of Congress who are not Jewish. First, I want to show you, I don't know whether the camera's picking this up.
Yes, actually we can see it, yeah.
Okay, that's a picture of me and the second daughter of Lyndon Baines Johnson. That's Lucy Baines Johnson. That picture was taken a couple of years ago here in Houston. That's a real LBJ for the USA button from 1964. I was 16 years old when I got that button. So I've been interested in politics since I was 12. And I told Lucy at that meeting I had a Kennedy Johnson bumper sticker on my bedroom door when I was 12. And by the way, she said, so did I, in her best Texas Hill Country accent. And then she said she was going to tell her daddy next time she talked to him. Egberto, I grew up in the Southeast. I grew up in a Jewish home. A father who had grown up, was first-generation American. His parents, one was from Lithuania, one was from St. Petersburg, Russia. And they left Russia about the time of what was known as the pogroms, the anti-Semitic wave that hit Russia, where Jews were beat up, murdered, Basically, a whole lot of them run out of the country. I grew up in the Southeast, in what I finally refer to as the buckle of the Bible Belt. Very Christian community in Chattanooga. Great people there. But I was a minority. I wasn't a Christian. And my parents were not from the South. Oh, my mother's mother was from the South, but my mother grew up in a northern Indiana farm town. My father grew up in West Virginia. My father served in World War II with the United States Army. And he had friends in the Army that he met up with in France near the end of his tour who had been to the concentration camps and extermination camps and freed the survivors. I have photographs in the other room that were taken by some of those servicemen that were given to my late father. They're a horror show in black and white. The concept of Jews and money goes back probably to the Middle Ages. When Jews were forced to the diaspora, the dispersion, they weren't allowed to own land in the countries where they wound up. They weren't allowed to be a part of the nobility. They weren't allowed to be citizens. And because they weren't allowed to own land, which was the primary way of making a living back then, they had to do something to be able to eat. And education has always been a very high priority, a secular education in the Jewish community. And they educated themselves. And the nobility noticed that. The king always needed a treasurer, somebody to handle the counting house, whatever. Jews weren't farmers, but Jews could do that. But then they got the reputation of being money people and manipulating others through the use of money. As a matter of fact, Jews have become pretty darn good farmers because when they settled in Palestine in the beginning of the 20th century, they went into what today is the Galilee, and it was nothing but swamps and bog land. And they reclaimed a lot of that land for farming. They had to teach themselves how to farm and prosper. They did. They don't have it in. We don't have it in our background. But the Jews have always had to deal with a trope of using money to manipulate others and being greedy. And right around the turn of the 20th century in Russia, there was a document created, and you can look it up on WikiLeaks. There's a lot of details on it and history on it. The trope was called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It was total fiction, presented as fact, about a plot of the Jews to dominate the world and control it through economics, through money. And that has permeated anti-Semitism in the 20th and 21st century. About 14 years ago, I was working for a company here in Houston, and I was in a sales office. My wife just came to the door and is glaring at me, wondering who I'm talking to. I have her headset. She's laughing now. I'm on live with Egberto. She says that's what she figured. I was in a sales office, and I was working for a software company here in Houston. And there's a fellow across the room who was a friend. Admittedly, I know him pretty well. He's a racist. And I heard him talking to somebody, long distance, both in sales, and I heard him say, yeah, he tried to Jew me down. And I froze. And the conversation went on, and then he said it again. And I waited. And when he got off the phone, I turned to him, and I used his name. I won't use his name now. But I said, hey, I really don't appreciate that. And he looked at me quizzically, and he said, what? And he knows I'm Jewish. He knew I was Jewish.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what you said? He said, what did I say? I said, you just said that somebody tried to Jew you down. And he looked at me like, what's wrong with that? Well, there's plenty wrong with that. And I've had to draw him a picture practically to get him to understand it. And about 6 months later, he used the term again. And I said, hey. And he looked at me like, oh, yeah, I forgot. And I will tell you, you mentioned Candace Weber a few minutes ago. She's a friend of yours. She's a very dear friend of my son's, who, by the way, I'll give Daniel a plug. He's founder and chairman of Invisible Houston. I've learned a lot from Candace.
I plug him all the time.
and he appreciates it. And so do I. I've learned a lot from Candace. We're friends on Facebook. I read her comments, her posts all the time. She's fiery. I've learned a lot about her. She makes a lot of sense. I read Ashton Woods, the head of one of the co-chairman of BLM, Black Lives Matter, here in Houston. Sometimes Ashton drives me nuts, but Ashton a lot of times makes a lot of sense. And I'm 70 years old now, and I grew up in the South. I grew up in a family that were not at all. I want to say they really weren't racist. They're probably less racist than I am. But I was surrounded by racists in Chattanooga, the Deep South, pretty much Deep South. But I have learned from Candace that I, as a white man, cannot possibly understand walking in the shoes of a black man, an African American person. I cannot begin to perceive the prejudice, the racism, the horrors that any black person in America has to deal with. And by the same token, non-Jews cannot understand the history of over 1,000 years of anti-Semitism that we have to put up with, cannot understand the horrors in our memories of the Holocaust, 6 million dead Jews and 10 to 13 million total murdered people by the Nazis. What Congresswoman Omar said was either intentional or not intentional at all. But it had tones of anti-Semitism. Just like I, as a white man, may say something that I don't realize is racist, but it's racist.
I want to stop you right there because and the reason first of all, when I made my statement, and when I read your long prose in detail, what was the first thing I did? I contacted you and I said I want to hear your point of view, and I wanted you on. And the reason why, and you just gave. People need to learn how to explain certain things, and you just gave a great parallel with Candace Weber and
Ashton.
And Ashton and yourself, as far as being able to walk into somebody's shoes. I can't wait for the day that many of us can actually feel like they're walking in others' shoes. That thing about real empathy. Not to pat myself on the back, but I think for the most part, I'm a very empathetic person in seeing things. And when I'm not, I'm a quick study, a quick learner of, that is what you meant by that. You heard me talking to in the segment before yours. Is one of the things that I said is I want to as communicating the message, right? Communicating the message is not about what you say, but how others interpret what you're saying, and that is something that I'm learning in many different genres, if you will. Here's my response to the first part to the first part of your commentary, and then I'll ask you to come in and continue. When something, and please explain this to me, and you know where I'm coming from here. I think, in my opinion, based on what has occurred, AIPAC has, in many people's view, an inordinate influence on, let's say, many of the politicians. Do you feel that way, or you don't feel that way, or is it? I am curious if don't you think AIPAC is, let's say, like the NRA, or even or the Planned Parenthood, or any one of these other organizations?
Well, that's an interesting question, and my take on it is they probably don't have an inordinate amount of influence, the Republican Party is using them. The Republican Party dearly wants to convert Jews to the Republican Party. Over 70% of the Jews in the United States are Democrats.
Right.
And they are working very hard and very insidiously. And they're using AIPAC more than AIPAC might be using them. AIPAC's interests are to support Israel and to generate political support for Israel. Now, do I support Israel? Yes. As I've posted, do I support Benjamin Netanyahu? No. And as a matter of fact, almost 50% of all the elected officials in the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament, don't support him either. And they're not anti-Semites. So this idea that if you speak out against the government in Israel, Netanyahu's government, you're anti-Israel is baloney. But I talked about the pogroms. I talked about the Holocaust. The Jewish state exists to be a homeland for the Jews because the Jews couldn't go anywhere else. Even the United States kept the Jews out who were seeking asylum from the Nazis. Roosevelt wouldn't let them into the United States. They had nowhere else to go. They went back to Hamburg, and ultimately they were executed.
Yeah, I don't
so
want to.
Yes, I support the state of Israel. One other thing. This is the second half of what my position and why I waved the picture of me and Lucy Baines Johnson and said I've been a Democrat all these years. And that is this: the issue of Israel for the Democratic Party is extremely divisive. I'm practical about politics. Politics is about winning elections to be able to influence and create policy. If you don't win elections, nothing else matters. All you're doing is demonstrating in the streets. But ultimately, to have power, you have to win elections. Ms. Omar is a brand new member of Congress. She ran on with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has a platform that's created every 4 years by Democratic delegates to the National Convention. And for her to get out front all of 4 weeks into her term and bring Israel in as a divisive issue within the Democratic caucus in Congress, because she did. Every one of the Jewish members, Democratic members of Congress, are furious. And it really, she went off the rails. And I applaud Speaker Pelosi and Leader Hoyer and Majority Whip James Clyburn for sending up a big flashing yellow flag, because they can't have divisive issues that are going to help Donald Trump get reelected come forth. They'll lose control. The Jews and the African American community in the United States have had a very, very tight bond. The Freedom Riders in the 60s, tons of Jews down from New York and other areas of the North. One of the 3 civil rights workers killed, at least one of them, in Mississippi in the early 60s, murdered, was Jewish. There have been elements of the African American community who have openly promoted anti-Semitism. Louis Farrakhan is one. And I do not think it helps the Democratic Party or those progressives, all of us progressives, who want to get rid of Donald Trump from the White House and want to institute a progressive agenda. I don't think it helps to stick an issue into the center of things on which there is no consensus and never will be any consensus within the Democratic Party. It is divisive, and it helps us snatch defeat from the hands of victory. And I'm tired of that. We're going to beat Donald Trump. We have to. We have no
We have
choice.
to beat Donald Trump. Now, let me tell you something, Roy, because you and I are going to have to sit down and drink some coffee.
Yes.
And not on this one. This particular part of the discussion won't be on air because you and I have to sit down where we can slap each other's back or something. Okay, but
Yeah.
I just want the audience out there to know what I want to talk to you about later on, so that in order to let them know that I understand these issues not only from a Jewish point of view, but from a Muslim point of view, etc. Because again, I make sure to respect all aspects, and whenever we're talking individual issues, it goes that way. Here's the deal that I'm going to want to talk to you about. I'm going to want to talk to you about Israel being a Jewish state proper, a Jewish state, and what that really means. I have some issues with the definition in the 21st century of a Jewish state that is, has to be maintained Jewish. I'll also want to talk to you about when are we going to, how should I put this rightly? It's the same thing that I ask black people, and I mean this delicately. There's nothing in the past that we are now going to change. How do you propose, you, Mr. Roy Cohen, my friend, how do you propose us moving forward? But there are parts of the discussion I just want to have where we can backslap and drink a cup of coffee.
How do you? Well,
Can
if
I
you
make
want
a comment?
Not yet, Bobby, because I
No.
promised that Roy that it wasn't going to be a debate. So you and I will talk after this, Bobby.
I don't make a debate. I want to make a comment.
One
I
quick-
make a debate.
a quick
I'm
one.
not trying to debate it.
A quick comment.
I heard everything that he said, and historically, it's right on. I can tell you that my oldest, dearest friend, his name is Stefan Komar. He's a captain in the New York City Police Department. His father was a member of the Polish underground that rescued people from Auschwitz. My connection to those stories are from diapers. I grew up in New York City. I will say this, I don't want Nancy Pelosi in Congress any more than I want Donald Trump as president, or Mitch McConnell in the Senate, or any of those, or Charles Schumer, or anybody else. I was raised in New York City in the 60s. I'm 56 years old, as you know. And in my view, true progressive starts with peace first. And the Democratic Party and their platform is no less warmongering, and particularly their actions, than the Republican Party. And they prove it all the time. I mean, Clinton proved it, Barack proved it, Donald was proving it, George proved it.
Bobby,
And if you go,
that is a subject you and I discuss. The subject that I wanted with Roy Cohen was, he contested a post that I made, and I wanted to give him the air to discuss that particular point because I owed that to my listeners, to my readers, all that sort of thing. But you and I are going to discuss that. Stay on the line because there's something specific that I want to talk about. So please stay there, my friend. So Roy. So you are a passionate Jewish and Israel supporter. I really want to sit down and talk to you about some specific issues for one reason and one reason only. We have to get over a whole lot of things, both with the Palestinians, the Muslims, the Jews, and some sort of interaction. And I want to hear I don't know the word in English, es sumamente judío, meaning like I want to hear from a real Jewish, not inclined, but a person that is a strong Jewish supporter kind of a deal, Israel supporter. So sometime I really do want us to set up an appointment and have some coffee, okay?
If you want somebody like that, I can get somebody way stronger than I am. I'll find you a Netanyahu supporter.
You arrange that. You arrange that, and what we'll do is we'll do that. Okay, my friend.
Okay, yeah. One last comment to the end to his last statements, and that is, perfect is the enemy of the good.
Exactly. So we'll talk. But brother Roy Cohen, I have to get to the end of the show. I want to spend some time with Bobby. I thank you so kindly again for being on this show again. I mean, I think this is the way we talk. I mean, look, there are a few. I gotta say I agree with probably 80% of what you had to say. The other percentage isn't gonna be talked about on our show, but it's something that we can talk about over a cup of coffee. All right?
Sure. Anytime.
Thank you so kindly for being with me, guys. Have a great day. Okay, folks, that was Senor Cohen, a dear friend of mine, a Jewish man who took exception to something that I had posted on my Facebook page, and as you see, I brought him on, and the same applies to you. If I post something that just makes you irate, as he was irate, his prose was, I don't know, longer than most of my blogs, but that he sent me. So I said, I want I think I got it back. I got my sound back. Anyhow, folks, before we go to Bobby, I just want to remind you guys that this is a progressive call-in show that needs your support. I always forget to do this. Please remember, go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. If you really want to have a conversation, if you really want to have somebody out there that is putting this message out, the progressive message, and give others the options to talk, people that normally don't get on air or whatever, that's what we are here for. We're really here to bring people together no matter what folks say, and we are here to have the hard conversations, and we will. Please go ahead and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That's patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Remember, How to Make America Utopia. My new book that I'm writing, chapter 2, is out. Folks who are registered or who are members of our group, who are, what do I call, subscribers, they get to read these chapters as we write them. And by the way, you get full access online to As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. That was my first book. I reread it when I put it online. And my God, if those things still apply today. It's amazing that all the work that I say we have to do in that book is still applicable today. None of it has been attained thus far. So, folks, take a look at that book, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. Have full access to all my books at patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon.politicsdoneright. If you don't want to subscribe, you just want to be a contributor to Politics Done Right, please remember to go to politicsdoneright.com. Now I'm going to bring my good friend Bobby Rodrigo. Bobby, how are you doing, sir? It's an honor to have you as usual.
I was thinking about you saying that if something that I write makes a person irate, then they should come on. I'd be on your show a lot. You know that?
Yeah, but you see, I can't have you too many times on the show because, damn it, Bobby, you talk a lot. I love you, but you talk a lot. And
yeah, but it's required because you guys are lost. I mean, please listen. So you were talking earlier about the way people hear you, and,
yes.
and the way and I get what you're saying. Of
yes.
course. I mean, we both work on the listening aspect as one of our core.
Right. I want to cut you a second because I want to say this. Put it this way: if I don't listen to how I come across to a Roy Cohen, okay, if I don't do that, then Roy Cohen is not going to listen to anything else I have to say. That is what I'm learning, right? I have friends that look at me and tell me, anytime I'm talking to you, the only thing I can think of is X, Y, and Z. It's a learning process. I'm still learning, right? So when I saw that message from him, I said to myself, damn it, I better, I want to check out the other side of the equation. I don't necessarily agree with Brother Cohen completely, but I agree with him enough to know that I need to speak to him some more. Continue, my friend.
Well, absolutely, but and you know what Jon Snow says on Game of Thrones: everything before "but" is horseshit. but the issue is the truth as well.
Yes,
and while we may need to figure out ways to tell the truth so people listen, we cannot compromise the truth anymore.
Absolutely not.
And I take issue. And I take issue with people who want people to toe the line in some kind of an agenda. I mean, that you've heard me say many times that oath of office is very prominent to me when it comes to civil servants.
Yes.
And that's one of the issues I have with our elected officials is that they don't do their oath. This is one of the reasons why I have an issue with Kamala Harris. And you mentioned the man and woman thing, and I totally accept that and believe that, and it has nothing to do with why and I know you know that, it has nothing to do with why I have issues with Kamala Harris. I look at it as a non-gender issue. It's an office issue, and I would like more people to do that. In my view. That's my personal advocacy is I wish more people would go with oath of office because we violate it constantly. Basically, when I took the oath in the military, I wasn't allowed to violate it anymore, and none of these civil servants should be allowed to violate it either. And at the same time, civil servants and elected officials who do not toe the line and tell the truth shouldn't be punished because they created a divisive issue in a party because the agenda is to get reelected or get somebody not elected.
But it's not a pure world. It's not a pure world, and those are things. Look. Let me.
That. And so does that mean we should compromise?
No, it's not. But here's my example. Here's my example, my friend. Here's my example. Okay, we have a whole lot of Democrats running for candidates. I've made 3 lists, right? The ones that I definitely won't support, and those that I definitely won't support are those who don't support Medicare for all. There are those who I will consider supporting, and those are the ones I don't quite know about yet. Okay, like Kamala is still on my dubious list, but the ones that are on my absolute definite list are so far Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and I don't remember the other third person that was on. And these are because they support the progressive values that I'm supporting. I'm going to wholeheartedly make sure that I support those that I think are progressives enough so that we can move the country forward. Now, to Roy Cohen's point, when whoever is the Democrat that gets elected out of the party, no matter whom, there isn't going to be until some third party somehow shows that they have some viability. I will not support, and this is what I was speaking to my Bernie. I'm a Berniac. I was speaking to all my Bernie brothers and sisters, right, when I was out there in Philadelphia. It's like we have to do the sensible thing. We have put ourselves behind because of the election of, and I know you can call Hillary a warmonger and all those other things, but you know what? A lot of Texans would have been alive if she would have been president.
Bernie's the warmonger.
Well, whatever.
Bernie's the warmonger.
Look, my point is this.
I'm just saying. But okay, but see, you talk about Bernie. So that's a great example of what I'm talking about. So in my opinion, the reason that Hillary lost is the same reason that Mitt Romney lost to Barack. The way that the party treated the other candidate that was viable in their party, those people who voted for that other candidate could not cross that line.
But
Ron Paul,
I'm going to tell you what I tell. I get it, but I'm going to tell you what I tell everybody about Bernie and whatever. It's a grown-up sport. Okay, it is a grown-up sport. It's not like he's somebody that doesn't.
We're not talking about you, but you're not talking about that. You're not talking about grown-up stuff. Grown-up stuff is fine, but when you have a state that votes for one person, this is a perfect example of how the Bernie people were treated badly. When you have a person, when you vote for somebody and you win, and then the superdelegate decides to go for the other person, that is a line that they won't be able to cross. When Ron Paul was running, I
am not only a Bernie supporter, but I was a Bernie delegate. Hillary Clinton won more votes than Bernie. Period. Okay, so I mean, even
I know that,
but what I'm saying,
votes than Bernie,
it doesn't look.
More votes than Bernie in Nevada.
Look, I'm not talking about it. I am not arguing that, Bobby. What I'm saying is this. It's a grown-up sport, and if Bernie could have done what Hillary did, he would have done it too. Let's not try to make Bernie some saint. Okay, I love Bernie, but It wasn't that. I know Bernie's chief of staff. It was the party that the party wanted Hillary Clinton. Okay, I understand that. I really do, sir.
So if I voted for Bernie in Nevada, it matters. If I voted for Bernie in Nevada and then they decide and I won, and then they say, "Too bad, we're going to pick Hillary anyway," I'm not going to go and run for and be nice to Hillary. It's just human nature.
It could be human nature.
That's what I'm talking about.
But here's what I'm saying, and this is why I want people to grow up. I want everybody to grow up, including voters to grow up. And the reason I say that is, okay, so they are mad that Hillary did some nefarious things in these different elections. So because of that, I either stay home or I vote for Donald Trump, or I vote for a third party, and we get Donald Trump. Oh, good. So are you better off? So the thing about it is, it's childish.
No, you're not better off, but you're asking people to dismiss integrity.
No,
and that's
how much is look?
That's exactly what it is.
Personally, I have integrity. I have morals. Personally, all of that is a fact.
I know you do.
But here's the thing, sir.
I know you do.
And here's the thing, sir. And it's 4:00, so we're going to have to close this baby down. But here's the thing: with all the morals that I have, when it comes to politics, as far as electoral, etc., I am going to do what is the best for the constituency named America. And what those people who, because their feelings were hurt justifiably, don't get me wrong, justifiably, decide that they're going to stay home or allow a Donald Trump, they have done more harm to the country than good when things are weighed. That's all. But I gotta go, Bobby. So give me a 15-second closing statement, guys. I gotta go. 15 seconds to close.
I think that we compromise too much in our country, and I think we need to hold people to a higher standard that are running for office and the party.
Okay, and I agree with you, sir, and I agree with you. But you know what you have to do, and I think you're doing it already. You have to go out there, bust your ass, and teach people that. And then when you drag more people on your side, we'll get it done. So, brother, thank you so kindly, Bobby Rodrigo, good friend of mine, for having been on the show. Thank you very much, Roy Cohen, for having been on the show. And thank you so kindly, Tamara Shealey, for being on the show. This is Politics Done Right. Remember, folks, support Progressive Radio. Patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right. Please become a subscriber. You get How to Make America Great. All right, How to Make America Utopia. And you also get online, as I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I close this baby. I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.